Good evening. As you listen to the sound of my voice, you might begin to notice your breath deepening, slowing. Allow me to be your gentle guide tonight, effortlessly leading you through the peaceful landscapes of a time long past. There is nothing for you to figure out here, nothing to solve. Your only task is to get comfortable, to feel the support beneath you, and to let my voice be a soft companion as we drift toward a story about the very stuff of life and the strange, hidden price that came with it. Before we drift too far, if you feel a connection to this place, you're welcome to leave a quiet like or subscribe. Think of it not as a task, but as leaving a soft footprint in the sand before you continue your journey inward. And if you feel so inclined, you can let me know in the comments where you're listening from, and what time it is in your corner of the world. It's a quiet way of knowing we are all sharing this moment together. And so find the gentle darkness in your room, perhaps with a soft blanket pulled a little closer, as we begin our slow drift into tonight's tale. The air is thick with a dry, dusty heat. It's a heat that has baked the world into a palette of beige and pale yellow. You stand on a bank of cracked earth, looking out at the river right now. But it's hardly a river right now. It's more like a sluggish, tired serpent of water, shrunk low within its banks, exposing pale mud flats that steam in the sun. This is the end of Shimu, the season of harvest and drought. The world feels thirsty. The air is so still you can hear the buzz of a fly a dozen paces away. Everything is waiting. You are waiting. All of Egypt is holding its breath. You look to the eastern horizon just before dawn, searching for a specific star, the one the priests call Sopted. Its return to the sky is the signal. It is the promise that the ordeal of heat is ending, and the miracle is about to begin. And then, one day, you feel it more than you see it. A subtle shift in the air, a different smell, earthy and damp, carried on a breeze that feels like it has traveled a very long way. The river begins to stir. It's not a violent event, not a crashing wave or a sudden torrent. It's a slow, deliberate, and unstoppable swelling. Every day, you come back to the same spot, and the water is a little higher. The sluggish serpent is waking up, its back arching, its skin stretching. The tired pale green-blue gives way to a rich, potent reddish-brown. It's the color of life itself, thick with the black silt carried all the way from the distant heart of Africa. The black land, the precious gift that gives your home its name, the Nile is delivering it to your doorstep. This is AKHET, the season of inundation. The flood. To an outsider, it might look like a catastrophe. The river is breaking its chains, spilling out over the cracked earth, swallowing the fields where just weeks ago you were gathering the last of the emmer wheat and barley. But you feel no fear. You feel a deep, bone-bred relief. The water drowns the scorpions and vipers hiding in the cracked earth. It washes away the dust and the decay of the dry season. It is a cleansing, a baptism for the entire land. You watch as the water creeps higher, covering the basin fields that have been prepared for it, filling the canals that your neighbors dug, spreading out like a vast, calm lake. The villages built on higher mounds of earth become islands in a tranquil brown sea. The rhythm of your life changes. There is no farm work to be done. Instead, you might fish in the newly formed shallows or repair tools or ferry goods from one island village to another. At the local temple, the priests are busy. They descend a flight of stone steps carved into the riverbank, a structure they call a nilometer. They meticulously mark the height of the flood. Their face is a mixture of sacred concentration and practical concern. Everyone knows the stakes. If the flood is too low, the silt won't reach all the fields, and the harvest will be poor. Famine will follow. If the flood is too high, it will wash away homes, destroy dikes, and bring ruin of a different kind. Historians centuries from now will still debate the exact balance of this system, how much was precise, state-controlled hydraulic engineering, and how much was simply a wing and a prayer, a deep-seated faith that the gods would provide the perfect flood. You don't know the answer either. You just watch the marks on the stone and pray. This year, the water rises to the perfect level. 17 cubits, the priests announce. Each year goes through the village. It is a blessing from Happy, the god of the flood. The land will be fertile. The granaries will be full. Everyone will eat. You look out over the vast, shimmering sheet of water covering the landscape, and you know that beneath its surface, a miracle is happening. A thick, rich blanket of life-giving mud is settling gently onto your fields. It is the soil from which your entire world will grow. It is the very substance that will soon be transformed, through sun and sweat and fire, into your daily bread. The bread that sustains you, the bread you are paid in, the bread that is life itself. There, in that muddy water, is the promise of survival. A pure, uncomplicated gift from the gods, or so it seems. The water stays for what feels like a long, restful time, a pause in the relentless rhythm of the agricultural year. Then, just as slowly as it arrived, it begins to retreat. The river pulls itself back, shrinking into its banks once more, leaving behind the greatest treasure you could ever ask for. The fields. They are no longer cracked and pale, but are now covered in a layer of dark, damp, dusting silt. The air smells of wet earth and new beginnings. The land is reborn. The season of emergence, of growing. Now the real work begins. You wade into the soft, yielding mud, your feet sinking with a satisfying squelch. The sun is gentle now, the heat of the deep summer broken by the flood. You carry a light wooden plough, perhaps pulled by a pair of oxen if your village is fortunate, or simply pulled by you and your sons if it is not. You don't need to dig deep. The task is just to turn over this new layer of soil, to prepare it for the seeds. Following behind you, your wife or daughter walks with a basket, scattering the precious grains of barley and dema wheat across the dark soil. The motion is ancient, a rhythmic flick of the wrist that has been passed down through generations. There's a curious efficiency to it all. Once the seeds are scattered, you might drive a flock of sheep or goats over the field. Their hooves do the work of 100 rakes, pressing the seeds gently into the soft earth, protecting them from the sun and the hungry birds. It's a system of beautiful simplicity, a partnership between human, animal, and earth. The weeks that follow are a time of watchful waiting. The sun strengthens. The green shoots appear, impossibly vibrant against the black earth. They grow with a speed that feels miraculous, reaching for the light. You spend your days tending the irrigation ditches, making sure the lingering moisture is channeled to where it's needed most, and chasing away the birds who see your field as a magnificent feat. Then comes the day when the fields are no longer green. They are a vast, rippling sea of gold under the brilliant Egyptian sun. It's time. You and your entire family walk out to the fields at dawn, carrying curved wooden sickles, their cutting edges lined with sharp flint flakes. The work is back-breaking. Use your paw squat, grabbing handfuls of the dry, brittle stalks and slicing through them with a swift, sawing motion. The sun climbs higher, beating down on your back. Dust and tiny bits of chaff fill the air, getting in your eyes, your nose, your throat. The sound of the harvest is a constant rustle and snap. All around you, other families are doing the same, a whole community stooped in labor. You see the tax collector, a scribe from the local temple, or a government official, standing in the shade of a canopy, his palatine reed pens at the ready. He watches everything, his sharp eyes calculating the yield. You know that a significant portion of what you cut will not end up in your own storage bin. It will go to the temple granaries or the pharaoh's storehouses. This is the price of living in this great, organized kingdom. Once cut, the grain is tied into sheaves and carried to the threshing floor, a patch of hard, sun-baked earth nearby. The sheaves are undone, and the grain is spread out. Now another team of animals is brought in, oxen or donkeys, their hooves mashing and stomping the stalks, separating the heavy heads of grain from the light, useless straw. Thresh for yourselves, thou oxen, you might sing, an ancient chant to encourage the animals and lighten the mood. Straw for you, and grain for your masters. The result is a messy pile of grain, chaff, and dust. The winnowing comes next. You and others use wide, shallow wooden scoops to toss the mixture into the air. The afternoon breeze, always reliable, does the rest. It carries away the light chaff and dust, while the heavier, precious grains of wheat and barley fall almost straight back down onto the mat below. It's a dusty, sneezy, thankless job. You end the day covered head to toe in a fine powder. Finally, you are left with a clean pile of golden grain. This is the culmination of an entire year's cycle. The promise of the flood fulfilled. This grain is your wealth. It's your food. It's your security. You run your arms through it, the kernels feeling cool and smooth. It seems so pure, so perfect. You have no reason to suspect that this very harvest, this gift of the gods and your own hard labor, contains a hidden flaw, a flaw that began not in the field, but will be introduced in the next crucial step of turning this hard-won grain into your daily bread. Some historians argue about the specific types of grain grown, whether emmer was more common than barley in certain periods or regions. But for you, the distinction is academic. It is all simply Nippur. It is life. The scribes have finished their calculations, their reed pens scratching across sheets of papyrus. The pharaoh's portion has been taken, the temple's share set aside. What remains is yours. But your reward doesn't come in the form of clinking metal discs or shiny stones. The very concept of money is a foreign one, a thing for strange merchants from across the sea. Your payment, your salary, the entire economic foundation of your life, is measured in food. Specifically, bread and beer. You make your way to the state storehouse, a large, mud brick compound with high walls and few windows, designed to keep out thieves and pests. Inside, the air is cool and smells of dry grain and yeasty beer. An overseer, another scribe with a ledger, checks your name off a list. He doesn't hand you a bag of grain. That would be inefficient. The state has already processed it for you. 2 men hand you your wages for the last period of work, a heavy basket filled with loaves of bread and several large ceramic jugs of beer. This is the Bekes, the daily ration that fuels the entire kingdom. The men who built the Great Pyramids at Giza weren't slaves, as many will later believe. They were skilled laborers, a rotating workforce of farmers like you, who worked on the monuments during the flood season when the fields were underwater. And what did they get for their troubles, for hauling massive limestone blocks under the hot sun? The records are quite clear: bread and beer, lots of it. A standard daily ration for a laborer was 10 loaves of bread and a couple of jugs of beer. A foreman or an official would get more. It was a system that worked. It fed the workers, quenched their thirst, and provided them with the calories needed for such demanding physical labor. You carry your wages home. The bread isn't light and dairy. These are dense, substantial loaves made from barley or emmer wheat. They are heavy in your hands, solid and reassuring. This is what will feed your family. The beer, thick and nutritious, is more like a thin, fermented porridge than the clear, bubbly liquid people in the future will know. It's often called liquid bread, and for good reason. It's made from the same ingredients and is a vital part of your diet. At home, you break off a piece of the bread. It's the taste of your world. It's slightly sweet from the emmer with a wholesome, earthy flavor. When you go to the temple to make an offering to the gods, you bring small, specially shaped loaves. When you prepare for the afterlife, you ensure your tomb is filled with depictions of bread, and if you're wealthy enough, actual preserved loaves, so your spirit won't go hungry on its long journey, is used in the most common greeting, a phrase of well-wishing that essentially means may you have bread and beer. This system of payment in food is so ingrained that it's used to calculate value. If you want to trade for a new pair of sandals or a small pot, the price will be quoted in loaves of bread. A simple bed might be worth a few dozen loaves. A donkey, several hundred. Bread is the dollar, the yen, the euro of your time. It is the universal standard. As you chew the dense, coarse bread, you are participating in the very system that holds your civilization together. From the lowest farmer to the highest priest, everyone understands this currency of carbohydrates. It's a system that seems perfectly logical. The land produces grain. The grain is made into bread, and the bread is given to the people who do the work. It's a closed, elegant to the people who do the work. But there is a flaw in the loop, a terrible grinding flaw. It's not in the harvest or the distribution. It's hidden within the loaf itself. You can't so accustomed to the texture that you barely even notice it anymore. But it's there. A hidden ingredient, a contaminant that was introduced in the dark, dusty room where the golden grain of the fields was violently transformed into the flour for your daily bread. This loaf, this symbol of life, stability, and divine providence, is silently betraying you with every single bite. Historians still debate the exact ratios of bread to beer in the rations and how they might have varied between professions, but the central fact is undisputed: your civilization runs on a bakery. And that bakery has a very dirty secret. Before a loaf of bread can be baked, the grain must become flour. And that journey from hard kernel to fine powder is where everything starts to go wrong. Let's go to the place where it happens. It's not a grand mill with water windmills; those are inventions of a distant future. Your technology is simpler, more direct, and far more intimate. You step into a small, dimly lit room in your home or a communal village bakery. The air is perpetually hazy with a fine, furry dust that coats every surface, including you. In the center of the room is the tool of the trade, the saddle quern. It's a simple piece of equipment. The bottom part is a large, slightly concave slab of stone limestone, or perhaps sandstone with a gentle dip in the middle, like a shallow saddle. This is the bedstone. The other part is a smaller, loaf-shaped stone that you can hold comfortably with two hands. This is the handstone. A woman, your wife, your mother, or a servant if you are well off, kneels on a reed mat behind the quern. It is grueling, physical work, almost always performed by women. She scoops a handful of the clean, golden grain you harvested onto the bedstone. Then she leans forward, putting her weight into it, and begins to push the handstone back and forth, grinding the grain against the lower slab. The sound is one of the most common in any Egyptian household, a rhythmic, scraping, grating noise. Skun scrush. It's the sound of breakfast being made. With each pass of the handstone, the hard kernels of amaranth barley are crushed and pulverized. The fine flour gradually works its way down the slope of the saddle and collects in a small pile on a cloth placed at the end. It's a slow, laborious process. To get enough flour for a single family's daily bread takes hours of this relentless grinding. The posture is punishing: kneeling, leaning forward, putting constant strain on the back, the shoulders, and the knees. Archaeologists centuries from now will examine the skeletons of Egyptian women and find telltale signs of this work, specific patterns of arthritis in their lower backs and knees, and distinct wear on their big toes from bracing themselves on the ground. But the damage to the grinder's body is not the only problem. The real issue is in the flour itself. Look closer at the stones. They are not made of diamond-hard granite. They are relatively soft stone, like the sandstone and limestone readily available along the Nile. As the handstone grinds against the bedstone, it's not just the grain that gets pulverized. The stones themselves are wearing down. With every single pass, microscopic particles of rock, tiny fragments of the quern itself, are scraped off and mixed directly into the flour. It's an unavoidable consequence of the technology. The harder you grind, the more flour you get, but the more stone dust you also create. It's a trade-off you're not even aware you're making. And that's not the only contaminant. Yodi in Egypt. The desert is never far away. A fine, almost invisible dust composed of tiny, sharp particles of sand and quartz settles on everything. It's on the grain when it's harvested. It's in the air of the threshing floor. It blows into the grinding room. It settles on the quern stone. No matter how carefully you clean the grain, some of this desert grit will always remain, finding its way into the flour with the stone dust. So, the resulting flour, piled on the cloth, looks white and pure. But it's not. It's an abrasive mixture. It is part nutritious, life-giving grain, and part sterile, damaging grit. It's a combination of food and sandpaper. You have no concept of this. You see flour. You smell the familiar, dusty scent of crushed wheat. You are thinking about the bread it will become, the hungry mouths it will feed. You don't know that you have just meticulously, laboriously, created the instrument of your own slow, painful decline. Every loaf of bread produced in this land, from the humblest worker's ration to the offerings in the grandest temple, is contaminated with this hidden ingredient. Historians have long debated the precise amount of grit in the average loaf, a difficult thing to measure. But modern forensic analysis of mummy teeth and preserved bread leaves no doubt. The secret of the grinding stone was that it gave, but it also took away, grinding down not just the grain, but the people who ate it. You take the flour, now a soft, heavy powder in a clay bowl. It feels right. It looks right. The idea that it's anything other than pure would seem absurd. You live in a world of sand. It is the boundary of your existence, the great sea of red land, the desert that borders the black, fertile strip of your home. A little grit is a fact of life. You feel it in the air on a windy day, a fine powder that stings your eyes and coats your tongue. You find it in the corners of your house, swept in by the breeze through the open doorway. It gets into the water jugs if they are not properly covered. It finds its way into the folds of your linen clothes. To you, sand is not a foreign contaminant. It is an element of your universe, as common as the sun and the rivers, as common as the sun and the river. So, the idea of a little grit in your food, a little grit won't hurt. This casual acceptance is your undoing, because the grit in your bread is not just the soft, wind-blown dust of the nearby desert. It's a combination of that and the much harder, sharper particles of rock from the grinding quern. While geologists of the future might distinguish between the mineral composition of deserts and unquarried limestone, to you it is all just grit, and you eat it. Let's think about what happens when you do. The human body is remarkably resilient. It can handle a lot. If you accidentally swallow a bit of sand at the riverbank, your digestive system simply passes it through. It's not nutritious, but it's largely harmless in small quantities. But your situation is different. This isn't a one-time accident. This isn't a one-time accident. This is a core feature of your diet, consumed meal after meal, day after day, for your entire life. And the damage isn't happening in your stomach. It's happening in your mouth. Your teeth are incredible tools coated in the hardest substance in the human body, enamel. They are designed for a lifetime of tearing, crushing, and grinding food. But they are designed to grind food, not rot. Every time you chew a piece of your daily bread, you are essentially initiating a tiny, microscopic geological event inside your mouth. The hard, flat surfaces of your molars press down on the bread. The bread gives way, but the tiny, sharp particles of sand and stone embedded within it do not. They are caught between two powerful grinding surfaces, your upper and lower teeth. Imagine rubbing two bricks together. They slowly wear each other down, producing a fine dust. Now imagine doing that thousands of times a day. This is what is happening to your teeth. The constant, abrasive action of the grit in your bread acts like a relentless file. It scrapes and scours the surface of your enamel, slowly, imperceptibly wearing it away. It's a process so gradual you don't even notice it. In your youth, your teeth have complex surfaces with hills and valleys, cusps and fissures perfectly shaped for chewing. But by the time you are a young adult, those features have started to soften. The peaks are a little less peaky. The valleys are a little more shallow. You wouldn't think anything of it. It's just what happens. You look at your parents, your elders. Their teeth are even flatter, some worn down almost to the gum line. You assume this is the natural course of aging. It's just what teeth do over time. You have no way of knowing that this is not normal. You have no control group to compare with. You don't know about other cultures in other lands, with different diets and different milling techniques, whose elders still have functional, healthy teeth. In your world, everyone eats the gritty bread, and so every owner's teeth wear down. It is a shared, communal, and completely unquestioned reality. This is perhaps the most insidious part of the problem. It's not a sudden illness that strikes one person. It's a slow-motion catastrophe affecting the entire population, hiding in plain sight. It is disguised as normal. There is a small, ongoing debate among archaeobotanists about whether certain preparation methods, like soaking the grain, might have reduced the grit. But the overwhelming evidence from the teeth of your countrymen suggests that whatever you were doing, it wasn't enough. The sand was getting through. And a little grit, it turns out, can hurt you very, very much. The flour, contaminated as it is ready. It's time to turn it into bread. You carry the bowl of gritty flour to the baking area, a sunny spot in your courtyard or another communal space. The process is one of comforting domesticity, a ritual performed countless times. First, you mix the flour with water from a clay jar and a little salt if you have it. You might add a starter, a piece of leavening dough saved from yesterday's baking, which is teeming with wild yeasts from the air. This will help the bread rise just a little. You knead the dough on a wooden board, your hands pushing and folding, developing the structure. The dough is stiff and heavy, a far cry from the light, elastic duffs of the future. This is because emmer wheat, your primary grain, is low in the kind of gluten that makes for fluffy bread. As you need, you might add other things to the mixture. A drizzle of honey for a sweet loaf, a handful of dates or figs for a special occasion, or perhaps some spices. But the core ingredients are always the same: flour, water, and yeast. And of course, the unintentional additions of sand and stone. Once the dough is kneaded, you shape it. You don't have rectangular baking tins. Your loaves are organic, rustic shapes. They might be simple, round, flat discs, or they could be conical, shaped almost like a sugarloaf. Sometimes, for offerings or special meals, they are formed into more whimsical shapes: a fish, a cow, a human figure. You press the dough into fired clay molds that have been lightly greased with oil to help the loaf pop out after baking. These molds are a clever bit of mass production technology, allowing the temple bakeries to churn out thousands of identical, cone-shaped loaves to pay the legions of workers. Now, you need an oven. If you're in a simple village home, your oven might just be a heavy pottery vessel that you heat over a fire. You place the dough inside, cover it, and then heap hot coals and embers all around it. It's a simple but effective method. In a larger household or estate bakery, you have a proper oven. It's a tall, cylindrical structure made of mud and clay, with an opening at the top and a small door at the bottom to stoke the fire. You get a hot wood fire roaring inside, heating the clay walls until they are radiating a fierce, shimmering heat. Then you let the fire die down to embers. The real baking is done by the residual heat stored in the thick clay walls. You reach in carefully and slap the flattened discs of dough directly onto the hot interior wall of the oven, where they stick. Within minutes, they cook through, blistering on browning. You then use a long poker to peel them off the wall and scoop them out. The smell fills the air. It's one of the most comforting smells in the world. Then and now, the scent of baking bread. It speaks of home, of nourishment, of safety. It's the aroma of civilization itself. It is a warm, wholesome, slightly sweet scent that completely masks the sinister nature of the tiny grains of sand hidden within the dough. As the bread bakes, those grains of sand and rock are locked into the structure of the loaf, like aggregates in concrete, unremovable part of the finished product. You pull the finished loaves from the oven, their crusts are deep brown, their insides dense and substantial. You stack them in a basket to cool. They are beautiful. They are beautiful. They are the symbol of your labor, the reason for the harvest, the payment for building a pyramid. You feel a sense of pride and accomplishment. You have taken the gift of the Nile and transformed it into the food that will sustain your family. You have no idea that what you hold in your hands is a paradox. It is both nourishment and affliction. It is the staff of life and to love slow, grinding destruction. There's a curious debate among historians about the exact flavor profile of ancient Egyptian bread. Was it sour from the wild yeast, or were they able to cultivate sweeter strains? But as you look at the beautiful warm loaf, you're not thinking about the flavor. And you are tragically unaware that the comforting aroma rising from the basket is the smell of a trap. The sun is setting, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. The day's work is done. Your family gathers in the simple courtyard of your mud brick home as the air begins to cool. The main meal of the day is about to be served. There might be a stew of lentils or beans, some onions and garlic, perhaps a small piece of fish from the river. But the centerpiece, the bulk of the meal, the food that fills your belly and gives you strength, is the bread you baked this afternoon. You take a loaf. It's still slightly warm. You don't use a knife to slice it. You simply break a piece off with your hands. The crust is hard and satisfyingly crisp. The inside, the crumb, is dense and chewy. You dip a corner into the stew, or perhaps into a little bowl of olive oil. And then you put it in your mouth and begin to chew. And there it is, the crunch. It's not a loud, dramatic crackle. It's a subtle, familiar, gritty texture. A faint, sandy friction between your teeth. You've been experiencing it your entire life, with every meal. You don't even register it as something unusual anymore. It's just the texture of bread. Just like water is wet and the sun is hot, bread is gritty. You chew, your powerful jaw muscles working to break down the dense loaf. Your molars, the broad, flat teeth at the back of your mouth, grind back and forth, reducing the bread to a paste you can swallow. And with every grinding motion, the tiny particles of quartz and limestone embedded in the bread are dragged across the surfaces of your teeth. It's like you're eating a mouthful of very fine-grained sandpaper. If you were to stop and pay incredibly close attention, you might feel it. You might be able to isolate that faint scraping sensation. But why would you? No one has ever told you that bread should be any different. The pharaoh in his palace is eating bread made in much the same way. The high priest in the temple of Karnak is eating it. The soldiers on the frontier are eating it. This texture is the texture of existence. You take another bite, more grit, more grinding. You look at your children. They are eating the same bread. Their young, healthy teeth starting on the same long, slow journey of erosion that yours are already well advanced on. You might even encourage them to chew their food well, believing you are teaching them a healthy habit, not knowing you are encouraging them to sand their own teeth down more efficiently. This single, repetitive action, happening in millions of mouths up and down the Nile, is the source of a civilization-wide health crisis. But it's a crisis that unfolds in silence, hidden inside each person's mouth. There are no public health officials to issue warnings. There are no alternative milling technologies to switch to. There is only the endless supply of gritty bread and the powerful human instinct to adapt. You've adapted to the point where the abnormal has become completely normal. Occasionally, you might bite down on a larger than usual particle, a tiny piece of stone that didn't get ground down as finely. You'll feel a sharp, unpleasant jolt as your teeth hit something unyielding. You might wince, probe the area with your tongue, and then, finding no lasting damage, you just swallow and move on. Just a tough bit in the bread. It happens. What you don't know is that even the tiniest particles are doing their work. Each one is a microscopic chisel, chipping away at your protective layer of enamel. It's a war of attrition, fought at a scale too small to see, and your teeth are losing. Very, very slowly. There is some scholarly discussion about whether Egyptians were aware of the source of the grit, with some papi vaguely mentioning sand in food, but no evidence suggests they understood the devastating link between this grit and the dental agony it would inevitably cause. To you, it's not a flaw. It's just dinner, and as you finish your meal, feeling full and content, you are completely unaware that the food that gives you life is also measuring out your future pain. It begins as a whisper, a fleeting, barely there sensation that's easy to ignore. You're drinking cool water from a clay cup, and as the water washes over a tooth on your left side, you feel a faint, sharp twinge, a tiny spark of discomfort. It's gone as quickly as it came. You pause for a moment, waiting to see if it comes back. It doesn't. You shrug it off. Strange feelings come and go. A few days later, you're eating a handful of sweet, sticky dates. As the sugary fruit touches that same tooth, the twinge returns, a little more insistent this time. It's not pain, not yet. It's more like a signal, an alert from a part of your body you rarely think about. You start to consciously chew on the other side of your mouth, avoiding the sensitive spot. The problem for now is solved, but the whisper grows louder. It becomes a dull, persistent take. It's not sharp or debilitating, but it's always there, a low hum of discomfort in the background of your daily life. It's there when you wake cutting reeds by the riverbank. It's there when you're trying to fall asleep at night. It's a new, unwelcome companion. You try to figure out what's wrong. You press on your jaw, feeling for any swelling. There's none. You run your tongue over the tooth, but it feels the same as all the others, flattened one. There's no obvious chip, no visible crack. The mystery deepens the frustration. The pain has no clear source, no wound you can point to. This is the first sign that the years of grinding have succeeded. The hard protective outer layer of your tooth, the enamel, has been completely worn away in certain spots. It's been eroded down to the second layer, a softer, more porous material called dentin. Dentin is not like enamel. It's alive. It's filled with thousands of microscopic tubulars, tiny channels that run directly from the outside of the tooth to the central nerve pulp within. When the enamel is gone, these channels are left exposed, and they are exquisitely sensitive. So when you drink something cold, the temperature change travels instantly down these tiny tubes to the nerve, causing that sharp jolt. When you eat something sweet, the sugary stimulus does the same thing. The nerve, which should be safely protected deep inside the tooth, is now essentially open to the world. It's getting information it was never meant to receive, and it's translating all of it into one simple, unpleasant message: pain. You don't know any of this, of course. The concepts of enamel dentin and nerve pulp are any way from being understood. Your understanding of your own body is a mixture of practical observation and magical belief. You might think the pain is caused by a demon, a worm that has burrowed into your jaw. The famous toothworm was a surprisingly persistent belief in many ancient cultures, a convenient explanation for a pain that had no visible cause. You might believe you have offended a god, and this ache is your punishment. You try some simple remedies. You rinse your mouth with salt water, which stings but seems to help a little. You chew on a certain kind of herb that a village elder told you about, which numbs the area for a short time. These things provide fleeting relief, but they do nothing to address the root cause. The cause is the bread you are still eating every single day. And every time you chew, you are not only causing more wear, but you're also forcing tiny particles of food and bacteria down into those newly exposed dentin tubulus, setting the stage for the next, much more serious phase of your problem. For now, you just live with it. A low-grade chronic ache. It's annoying, it's frustrating, but it's not yet enough to stop you from working or living your life. You see others in your village rubbing their jaws, wincing as they eat. It seems to be a common complaint. Another one of life's burdens. You have no idea that this first dull ache is not the problem. It's the warning siren for a catastrophe that is brewing deep inside your bone. The dull ache from your jaw has become a focal point of your awareness. It's a stone in your shoe, a constant, low-level distraction. And it makes you curious. In a quiet moment when no one is watching, you begin to investigate. Not with your eyes, it's too dark in the back of your mouth to see anything, but with the most sensitive tool you own, your tongue. You close your eyes and let your tongue begin its exploration. You start with the front teeth, the ones you use for biting. You remember them from your youth with their sharp, straight edges, perfect for tearing a piece of tough meat or snapping a crisp reed. Now your tongue glides over them, and the edge is blunted, rounded, like a tool used for too long. It's no longer a blade, it's a stump. Then you move to the pointed teeth on the corners, the canines. They once felt like tiny daggers in your mouth, sharp and fierce. Your tongue finds the spot, but the point is gone. It's been ground down into a gentle, harmless slope. The real shock comes when you guide your tongue further back, to the wide, powerful molars, the workhorses of your mouth. You have a vague, distant memory of what they used to feel like. A miniature mountain range on each side, with peaks and valleys, fissures and crests. An intricate, bumpy landscape designed by nature to mash and pulverize food with perfect efficiency. That landscape is gone. What your tongue finds now is a flat, polished plain. It's a surface so smooth, so devoid of texture that it feels alien. It's like running your tongue over a row of small, smooth pebbles, worn down by a relentless river. The hills have been leveled. The valleys have been filled. You slide your tongue back and forth over the occlusal surface, the chewing surface, and there is nothing. Just a vast, barren plateau of worn-down tooth. This isn't decay. It's not the mushy collapse of a rot entirely. This is erosion. A slow, mechanical grinding away of your very substance. You don't have the words for it, but you can feel the truth of it. All those years of chewing the gritty bread, day in on day out, have not just been feeding you. They have been polishing you down, erasing you, one microscopic layer at a time. You explore the other side of your mouth. It's the same story. A flat, featureless expanse where a complex chewing machine used to be. You bring your teeth together, and the way they meet feels wrong. They no longer interlock with that satisfying, perfect fit. It's like trying to stack two flat stones. They just slide around. You have to consciously shift your jaw to the side to get any real grinding action going, which probably explains some of the soreness you feel in the muscles around your temples. This phenomenon, which future scientists will call extreme attrition, has a profound impact beyond just the shape of your teeth. It changes the entire architecture of your bite, and as you sit there, probing the smooth, unnatural surfaces in your mouth, a cold realization begins to dawn. This isn't just about one sensitive tooth anymore. You open your eyes and look at the people around you. Your spouse, your older relatives. When they smile or laugh, you catch a glimpse of their teeth. And you see the same thing. Flat, brown-stained, worn-down surfaces. In the very old, the teeth are ground down so far, they are barely knobs protruding from the gum. This shared reality raises a question that historians and bioarchaeologists still argue about. What was the ancient Egyptian concept of a normal mouth? Did you see this widespread dental destruction and recognize it as a pathology, a sign of a deep problem with your diet? Or was it so universal that you simply accepted it as the natural process of aging? Was a worn-down smile, much like graying hair or wrinkled skin, simply the mark of a long life? A sign that you had eaten your share of bread and seen many harvests? You don't know the answer. You only know that your own teeth feel foreign in your own mouth. They are no longer the tools you were born with. They have been reshaped by your world, by the very food meant to sustain you, into something weak, smooth, and vulnerable. And that vulnerability is about to be exploited. The flat, worn-down surface of your tooth is a landscape of impending disaster. What you felt with your tongue was just the surface of the problem. The real crisis is happening at a microscopic level, deep within the structure of the tooth itself, in a place you can't see or feel until it's far too late. Let's imagine we have a special kind of sight, one that can zoom in and see through the layers of your tooth. The first layer, the brilliant white enamel, is almost completely gone from the chewing surface. It's been ground away by years of sandy bread. Beneath it lies the dentin, that softer yellowish, porous layer. And because the dentin is much softer than enamel, it wears away even faster. This is why the tops of your teeth might look darker or more yellowed than the sides you're seeing the exposed dentin. But the wearing down doesn't stop there. As you continue to chew your daily bread, the erosion continues, getting deeper and deeper, boring its way towards the very heart of the tooth. And what's at the heart of the tooth? A small, hollow chamber. The pulp chamber. Inside this chamber is the pulp. It's a delicate living tissue made up of nerves and blood vessels. It's the tooth's life support system. The nerves are what feel pain hot. The blood vessels are what bring nutrients to keep the tooth alive and healthy. This entire vital system is supposed to be sealed off from the outside world, protected by thick walls of dentin and enamel. But your walls have been breached. With every gritty meal, the floor of dentin above the pulp chamber gets thinner and thinner. Eventually, after years of relentless grinding, a microscopic hole appears. A tiny, almost imperceptible perforation, connecting the hostile environment of your mouth directly to the sterile, vulnerable pulp chamber. The moment this happens, it's a declaration of war. Your mouth is a jungle, teeming with billions of bacteria. Most are harmless, but some are aggressive and opportunistic. They are constantly looking for a way in, and you have just given them a wide open door. Bacteria from your food, from plaque, from the very air you breathe, begin to flood into the pulp chamber. For the delicate nerves and blood vessels inside, this is an invasion of unimaginable horror. They are being swarmed by an enemy they weren't ever meant to encounter. The body's response is immediate and automatic. It triggers an inflammatory reaction. Your immune system sends white blood cells rushing to the site to fight the invading bacteria. Blood flow to the tiny vessels in the pulp increases dramatically. But here is the fatal design flaw of a tooth. In any other part of your body, when inflammation occurs, the tissue can swell. If you sprain your ankle, It puffs up, which is painful, but allows the immune system room to work. A tooth cannot do this. The living pulp is trapped inside a rigid, unyielding box of dentin. So as the pulp becomes inflamed and swells, it has nowhere to go. It begins to crush itself against the hard inner walls of the tooth. The pressure builds and builds, squeezing the nerves and cutting off its own blood supply. The pain becomes intense, a deep, throbbing, relentless agony. The pulp is literally strangling itself to death. The tissue, starved of blood and overwhelmed by bacteria, begins to die and decay. The pulp chamber fills with a foul mixture of dead tissue, bacteria, and pus. You have a ticking time bomb in your jaw. This isn't just a toothache anymore. This is a full-blown infection, sealed inside the bone of your skull. There is a long-standing debate among paleontologists about how quickly this process, from pulp exposure to abscess, would have taken. Did it happen over weeks or months? The answer likely varied from person to person, but the final outcome was tragically consistent. The unseen enemy, having breached the gates, was now multiplying in the darkness, preparing for its next move to break out of the tooth and invade the surrounding bone. And you, on the surface, might only be aware of a toothache that has gone from bad to worse. You are about to enter a new world of pain. Let's step away from the banks of the Nile for a moment and journey far, far into the future. We travel through the rise and fall of empires, past the invention of machines and the mapping of the stars. We arrive in a quiet, climate-controlled laboratory, a place of soft beeping sounds and focused, quiet work. The air smells of sterile metal and old, dry linen. On a padded table lies something you would recognize, yet find utterly strange: a sarcophagus. Not a golden, ornate one belonging to a pharaoh, but a simpler wooden or cartonnage case, belonging to someone like you. A farmer, a craftsman, a weaver, a team of people in white coats, scientists, archaeologists, conservators are gathered around it. They are about to look inside. Not with crowbars and hammers, but with a tool you couldn't possibly imagine. The sarcophagus is carefully wheeled into a large, donut-shaped machine. This is a CT scanner, a computed tomography scanner. It's a machine that can see through solid objects, using a type of energy you've never heard of called X-rays. It takes hundreds, even thousands of cross-sectional pictures, creating a complete, three-dimensional digital map of everything inside the coffin, without ever unwrapping the delicate linen bandages. The scientists huddle around a glowing screen. A ghostly black and white image appears. It's the mummy, still tightly wrapped as it has been for over 3,000 years. With a few clicks of a button, the digital image can be rotated, zoomed, and even sliced open, layer by layer. They can peel back the virtual linen, look at the skeleton, examine the organs if they are preserved. They are not looking for golden amulets or hidden treasures. They are looking for clues about your life. And they zoom in on the skull. The image on the screen is stark. They can see your teeth with perfect clarity. And what they see confirms the story we've been telling. The crowns of the molars are completely flat, worn down in a way that is shocking to a modern dentist. The scientists nod knowingly. This is classic attrition, the telltale sign of a coarse, abrasive diet. The signature of Egyptian bread. But they look closer. Using the software, they can peer inside the jawbone itself. And here, the silent tragedy of your life becomes screamingly visible. At the tip of the root of that aching tooth, the one that had been whispering and then shouting at you, the CT scan reveals a dark, shadowy circle in the bone. It looks like a small, hollow bubble. This is the evidence of an abscess. It's the cavity left behind after the infection, which brewed inside your dead tooth, finally broke out. The immense pressure from the pus and gas building inside the root canal forced its way out through the small hole at the tip of the root, and began to eat away at the surrounding jawbone. The bone, trying to contain the infection, receded, creating this hollow space. The scientists can measure it. They can see how large it was. They can see the channel, the fistula, that the infection may have bored through the bone to drain into the mouth. They can see the devastating collateral damage. Sometimes they find jawbone nests that have been fractured, weakened by a massive, untreated infection. They can see multiple abscesses, evidence of a mouth filled with chronic, agonizing pain. These whispers from the tombs, revealed by high technology, are transforming our understanding of your daily life. For a long time, the focus was on the grandeur, the pyramids, the temples, the golden masks. But this new forensic evidence tells a different story. It's a story of widespread, endemic suffering. The data collected from hundreds of mummies, from the poor to the noble, paints a grim picture. Severe dental disease wasn't an unfortunate exception. There's still academic discussion about the exact prevalence rates. Was it 70% of the population? 80%? 90%? The numbers vary depending on the population sample and the period. But the overwhelming conclusion is that a huge portion of your society was walking around with the kind of severe dental infections that today would trigger a medical emergency. The scientists in the lab are quiet, respectful. They are looking at data, but they understand that this data represents a real human being who lived, worked, and suffered. That dark spot on the screen is not a pixel. It's the ghost of your pain, a silent scream that has been echoing in the bone for millennia, now finally heard in a sterile room, thousands of years after you took your last painful breath. Back in your own time, you don't have the benefit of a CT scanner. Your evidence is much more personal, much more raw. It's written on the faces of the people around you. You see it in the village elder who is missing half his teeth, his jaw sunken in. You see it in the slight, permanent swelling on the cheek of the potter's wife. You hear it in the groans of your neighbor at night, kept awake by a throbbing jaw. The archaeologists of the future have a name for this field of study. They call it paleopathology, the study of ancient diseases. And when they look at your civilization, they are not just looking at one or two mummies. They are looking at thousands of skeletons, excavated from dusty pit graves and simple burials across the land. These are the ordinary people, the ones who didn't get a fancy sarcophagus. And their bones tell the same story, over and over again. Imagine an archaeologist in a dusty trench, carefully brushing sand away from a human skull. They are not looking for gold, they are looking for you. They lift the skull, cradle it gently, and the first thing they often do is examine the teeth. To them, your mouth is a library, and every tooth is a book telling the story of your life. They can see your age, roughly, by how worn down your teeth are. The more attrition, the older you likely were. They can see your diet in the microscopic scratches on the enamel, distinguishing the patterns left by tough vegetables from those left by stone-ground grains. But most dramatically, they can see your pain. They hold the jawbone up to the light. And there it is. A small, perfectly round hole on the outer surface of the jaw, right below the root of a molar. It's not a wound from a weapon. Its edges are smooth, remodeled by the body. This is a fistula, a drainage hole. It's the body's last, desperate attempt to relieve the immense pressure from the abscess that was raging inside the bone, has tunneled its way through the bone and out through the gum tissue to drain into the mouth. You would have known this as a gumbo ill. A foul-tasting, recurring pimple on your gums that would swell up, burst, release a disgusting fluid, and then subside, only to repeat the cycle again and again. It might have even provided some temporary relief from the pressure, but the underlying infection remained, simmering away in your jaw. The paleopathologists document this meticulously. They measure the size of the abscess cavities inside the bone. They count how many teeth are affected. They note which teeth are lost entirely, not just fallen out from old age, but lost because the surrounding bone was so destroyed by infection that it could no longer hold the tooth in place. When they compile all this data from hundreds of individuals from different time periods and different social classes, a terrifying pattern emerges. This isn't just a collection of individual tooth itches. This is a public health crisis on a civilization scale. The sheer prevalence of pyropecac abscesses, these infections up the tips of the tooth roots, is staggering. In some cemetery populations, well over half the individuals show evidence of this kind of severe pathology. This leads to a somber, ongoing debate in the academic world. How did this constant, debilitating pain affect your society? Can we quantify the lost productivity from people too sick to work in the fields? Can we measure the impact of chronic infection on life expectancy? It's hard to say for sure, but it's impossible to look at the data and not conclude that your world was one filled with a level of dental agony that is almost unimaginable to a modern person. The grandeur of Egypt, the pyramids, the temples, the intricate art, all of it was built by people who were, in very large numbers, suffering from chronic, painful, and dangerous infections. The archaeologist in the trench, holding your skull in their hands, feels a profound sense of connection. They are not just studying a skeleton. They are diagnosing the pain of a nation that was slowly, silently, being ground down by its own bread. Let's stand for a moment on the Giza Plateau. The sun is climbing, and the air is already beginning to shimmer with heat. Before you, a mountain of limestone and granite pierces the brilliant blue sky. The Great Pyramid, a monument of such scale and precision that it seems impossible, a structure that will still be standing, still inspiring awe, 5,000 years in the future. You were part of this. During the flood season, when your farm was underwater, you came here. You joined a team of men, hauling massive blocks of stone from the nearby quarries. You lived in the workers' village, a sprawling city of bread and beer, of camaraderie and brutal, exhausting labor. You felt the immense weight of the limestone, the roughness of the ropes in your hands, the burning in your muscles. You were building for eternity. You were creating a stairway to the heavens for your divine king, a monument to ensure the stability of the cosmos, to guarantee that the sun would rise and the Nile would flood forever. You look at the pyramid, at its perfectly fitted stones and its gleaming, polished casing that shines like a star, and you feel a sense of collective pride. You are part of something immense, something that will outlast you, your children, and your children's children. But now, turn your gaze inward. Inside your own body, another kind of construction is underway, a slow, destructive, and agonizing one. While your hands were holding stones to build a monument of order and perfection, the sandy bread you ate for your wages was building a monument of chaos and decay inside your mouth. There is a staggering contrast here. The society that could organize and marshal the labor of tens of thousands to build the most geometrically perfect structure of the ancient world could not figure out how to get the sand out of its flour. The civilization that developed a sophisticated understanding of mathematics and astronomy to align their temples with the stars was, on a daily basis, crippled by a rudimentary technological flaw. You stand in the shadow of the pyramid, and the throbbing in your jaw seems to mock the perfection before you. The monument is a symbol of the divine principle of order, truth, and balance. But there is no balance in your body. There is only the escalating disorder of infection. The grand cosmic order that the pharaoh represents feels very distant when compared to the immediate, personal chaos of your own physical suffering. You think of the overseers, the architects, the priests. They too ate the bread. Perhaps their flour was more finely sifted, their loaves made with more care. But the grinding stones were the same. The fundamental problem remained. Did the brilliant imitator architect of the first pyramid ever have to stop work because of a toothache? Did the scribes, meticulously recording the inventory of the royal granaries, ever struggle to concentrate through a haze of dental pain? The bones suggest they did. This is the great hidden paradox of your world. The grandeur and the grit exist side by side. The immense public achievement is built on a foundation of quiet, private suffering. For every perfectly angled stone set in place on the pyramid, there was a person with imperfect, worn-down teeth. For every glorious inscription carved into a temple wall, there was a mouth filled with bacteria and pain. It's a debate that Egyptologists still grapple with. How do we reconcile these two realities? Do we focus on the magnificent legacy of the pharaohs, or on the grim evidence of the common person's struggle? The truth is, you can't have one without the other. The two stories are inextricably linked. The pyramids were built because of the bread and beer ration system, and the people were sick because of that same system. The glory and the agony come from the same loaf. As you stand there looking from the towering peak of the pyramid back towards the humble workers' village, you are the living embodiment of this contrast. You are a builder of eternal monuments, and you are a person who is being slowly unbuilt, ground down from the inside out by the simplest, most essential thing in your life. The bread of life is the bread of pain. The pain is no longer a dull ache. It has graduated. It's now a hot, sharp, insistent throbbing that radiates from your jaw to your temple and down into your neck. It's a living thing, a malevolent presence that occupies your every waking thought. It has become the center of your universe. The simple remedies, the saltwater rinses and chewed herbs, are useless against this new level of agony. You are desperate, and in your desperation, you turn to the only real experts you know, the priests. You make your way to the local temple. It's not one of the grand, monumental complexes, but a smaller, more intimate place of worship. You don't go to the main sanctuary, which is reserved for the high priests and the gods. You go to a side chamber, a place known as the House of Life. It's the center of knowledge and healing for your community. An older priest, his head shaved and his body draped in clean white linen, listens to your complaint. He has seen this 1,000 times. He nods slowly, his face calm and serious. He doesn't examine your mouth. The problem, as he understands it, is not entirely physical. Ailments like this are often the work of malevolent spirits, angry ghosts, or a punishment from a displeased god. Therefore, the cure must be both magical and medicinal. He consults his library, which isn't a collection of books, but of papyrus scrolls stored neatly in clay jars. He pulls out a specific one. It's a medical text, a collection of remedies and incantations passed down through generations. He unrolls the delicate, brittle scroll. You see the elegant lines of hieratic script, the cursive form of hieroglyphs used for everyday writing. This is the Ebers Papyrus, or something very much like it, one of the oldest and most important medical documents in the world. The priest runs his finger along the lines of text, searching for the relevant passage. He finds the section on dental problems, and he begins to read a treatment to you. The first part of the cure is a spell. He tells you that the pain is caused by a toothed worm, a mythical creature that gnaws at the roots of your teeth. He begins to chant an incantation, his voice slow and rhythmic. O vile worm that dwells in the tooth, the great god Horus will smite thee. The goddess Bekes will silence thee. Flee from this man's jaw. Dissolve and be no more. The words are meant to have power, to magically drive out the entity causing your suffering. You stand there listening, hoping the gods can hear. After the spell, the priest moves on to the more practical part of the remedy. He reads a recipe from the papyrus. To treat a tooth that gnaws, he recites 1 part cumin, 1 part incense, 1 part onion, 1 part dough. Grind them together into a fine paste. He instructs an assistant to prepare the poultice. You watch as they grind the ingredients together on a small stone pallet. The cumin and incense release a strong, pungent aroma. The onion makes your eyes water. The dough acts as a binder, creating a thick, sticky paste. The priest takes a small amount of this concoction on his finger and tells you to open your mouth. He carefully packs the paste around the aching tooth and the swollen gum. The taste is astonishing. It's a powerful, confusing mixture of spicy, earthy, and pungent flavors that overwhelm your senses. The cumin might have some mild antiseptic properties, and the pressure of the paste might provide a strange, temporary counter-irritation to the pain. For a moment, the sheer novelty of the sensation distracts you from the throbbing. You are sent home with instructions to repeat the incantation at sunrise and sunset, and to keep the poultice applied as low as possible. You pay the temple not with money, but with a few loaves of bread or some produce from your garden. You leave feeling a flicker of hope. You have sought the wisdom of the ancients, the magic of the gods. Surely, this must work. But, as you walk home, the intense taste in your mouth begins to fade. The distraction wears off, and slowly, like the sun climbing back over the horizon, the deep, hot, throbbing pain returns, completely untouched. The tooth worm, it seems, is not impressed by cumin and incense. The bacteria breeding in your jawbone are indifferent to your spells. There's a great deal of academic debate about how to interpret these medical papier. Were the spells seen as the primary treatment, with the herbal remedies as secondary? Or was it a holistic approach where the magical and the physical were inseparable? Whatever the philosophy, you are left with the grim reality. Your civilization's most advanced medical knowledge has just failed you, and the infection continues its silent, relentless work. The priest's poultice was a failure. The throbbing in your jaw is now accompanied by a swelling you can feel with your fingers and see in your reflection in a bowl of water. Your cheek is distorted, puffy and tender to the touch. The desperation returns. stronger than before. Magic didn't work, so you turn to another source of wisdom: folk medicine. The kind of knowledge passed down from grandmother to grandchild, the whispered cures and strange remedies shared between neighbors. An old woman in your village, known for her knowledge of such things, sees your swollen face. She shakes her head knowingly. The temple priests and their fancy scrolls, she might mutter. They've forgotten the old ways. She tells you she knows a more potent remedy, one that requires a certain fortitude. She beckons you into her dark, smoky hut. The air is thick with the smell of dried herbs and something else, something vaguely musky. From a small clay pot, she produces the main ingredient for her cure. Your stomach turns. But you are in too much pain to leave. You listen. The logic she presents is a form of what future thinkers will call sympathetic magic. The idea is that like cures like, or that an object with certain properties can transfer those properties to you. Mice, she explains, have strong teeth. They can chew through almost anything. Therefore, by applying a mouse to your weak, aching tooth, the strength of the mouse's teeth will be transferred to yours. It makes a strange kind of sense in a world without germ theory. The recipe is stomach churning. The mouse is to be mixed with other ingredients, some herbs, some fat, and pounded into a paste. You are then to take this paste and pack it around the afflicted tooth. You stand there, a war raging inside you. The revulsion versus the agony. The agony wins. You close your eyes and let the old woman administer the treatment. The feeling of the mouse paste being pushed into your mouth is indescribable. It's gritty, greasy, and profoundly wrong. You fight the urge to gag. You are told to keep it there as long as you can bear it. Of course, this remedy is not just ineffective, it's dangerous. You are introducing a host of new bacteria from the dead animal directly to the site of an already raging infection. You are, in essence, pouring gasoline on a fire. But you don't know this. You only know the pain and the desperate hope that this disgusting treatment might finally bring relief. This isn't the only strange dental remedy in your world. There are others, equally bizarre. Some texts suggest fumigating the mouth with the smoke of burning henbane seeds. Henbane is a plant that contains scopolamine and hyceamiants, which can cause hallucinations under feeling of sedation. The smoke might have made you feel dizzy and disoriented, temporarily distracting you from the pain. The tiny black seeds, when heated, can writhe and pop, looking like small worms, which would have proven to you that the treatment was successfully expelling the toothworm. Another treatment involves a dead bat, with the idea that a creature of the night could fight the darkness of the pain. Yet another calls for donkey saliva, though how one was meant to collect it is a detail often left to the imagination. These remedies highlight the vast gap between your understanding of the body and the reality of your disease. Without a knowledge of microbiology, without an understanding of infection, you are left to guess. And your guesses are based on magic, superstition, and flawed logic. It's easy for people in the future to dismiss these practices as primitive and foolish. But they are born of utter desperation. A person in the kind of pain you are experiencing will try anything. There's an ongoing academic discussion about how common these more extreme folk remedies were, versus the more mainstream temple medicine. Were they a last resort, or a common first-line treatment for the poor who couldn't afford a temple donation? It's hard to know. What is certain is that as you sit there, with a dead mouse packed into your jaw, you are at the absolute limit of your civilization's ability to help you, and the infection in your bone, feasting on this new offering, continues to grow stronger. The swelling in your cheek gets a little bit bigger. The mouse paste has, rather predictably, failed. The swelling is worse, the pain a constant, fiery companion. You have tried the priest's magic and the village crone's folk remedy. There is one last resort to SWNW, a man who is considered a physician. Finding one isn't easy. They are not on every street corner. They are often attached to the court of a nobleman, the army, or a major temple. You manage to get an audience with one, a man with a reputation for his practical skills. He carries a wooden chest, filled with small alabaster jars of ointment and a set of intimidating-looking bronze tools. You have a flicker of hope that this man, with his instruments and professional air, might finally offer a real solution. He examines you, a little more closely than the priest did. He presses on the swollen jaw, noting your wince of pain. He may even dare to peer into your mouth, using a small bronze probe to tap on the offending tooth. The jolt of agony that shoots through your skull tells him he has found the right one. But what can he actually do? His understanding of your problem is still fundamentally the same as the priest's. The line between a physician SWNW and a magician SAU in your time is incredibly blurry. Many were both. The SWNW might use more physical treatments, but his diagnosis is still rooted in a world of gods and spirits. He might agree that a tooth worm is the cause, or perhaps blame a specific demon known to cause festering wound. So his treatment is, once again, a mixture. He might start with another incantation, perhaps a more specialized one he learned as a physician. But then he moves to his tools. Your heart pounds as you see him select a long, sharp-looking probe. Is he going to pull the tooth? Probably not. Tooth extraction, while it did happen, was an absolute last resort. It was a brutal, dangerous procedure. Without effective anesthetics, the pain would be unimaginable. Without antibiotics, the risk of the open socket becoming infected was immense. An extraction could easily lead to a broken jaw or fatal, spreading infection, so physicians were extremely reluctant to do it. They preferred to manage the problem rather than remove it. So what does he do? One of the most common surgical procedures for a dental abscess was to lance it. If the swelling in your gum was pronounced, forming a large, pus-filled boil, the physician might take a heated bronze lancet or knife and make a quick, sharp incision to drain it. The sudden release of pressure and foul-smelling pus would provide immediate, though temporary, relief. It was a painful, terrifying moment, but the relief that followed might have felt like a miracle. However, lancing only drains the symptom. It doesn't cure the disease. The source of the infection, the dead tooth, remains. The abscess would simply fill up again. If there was no boil to lance, the physician might turn to his collection of jars. He would create a medicinal cement. One famous recipe calls for mixing ground barley with honey and a mineral called yellow ochre. This paste was used to fill a cavity, but you don't have a simple cavity. You have a tooth worn to the pulp. The physician might try to pack this cement onto the flat, worn surface of your tooth, believing it will seal it off from the corrupting air. He is just trapping the bacteria inside, giving them a nice dark, sealed environment in which to multiply. This is the great debate among medical historians: were ancient Egyptian doctors healers or unintentionally harmers? They were working with the best knowledge they had. Some of their practices, like setting broken bones, were remarkably effective, but when it came to infection, they were completely in the dark. Their attempts to help were often making the situation worse. The physician applies his special cement, butters a final protective charm, and accepts his payment, more bread of course. He tells you to rest and let the healing power of the gods do their work. You leave his care, your mouth filled with a strange, gritty honey ochre mixture. You feel, once again, that something has been done. Action has been taken. But the fire in your jawbone has not been quenched. It is still smoldering, gathering its strength, preparing to spread beyond the confines of your mouth and into the rest of your body. The doctor, for all his skill and authority, has only managed to delay the inevitable. The days that follow your visit to the physician are a blur of escalating misery. All the failed remedies, the priest's poultice, the crone's mouse, the doctor's cement have done nothing to stop the relentless march of the infection. The battle inside your jaw has entered a new and terrifying phase. The dull throb has become a roaring fire. The pain is no longer confined to the tooth itself. It has conquered your entire jaw, spreading like a malevolent vine. It feels as though the bone itself is screaming. The side of your face, which was once just puffy, is now profoundly swollen. It's a hard, hot, angry lump that distorts your features. You look at your reflection and see a stranger, a lopsided monster with one cheek bulging out, the skin stretched taut and shiny. This is a full-blown acute abscess. The infection, which has been simmering inside the bone at the root of your tooth, has exploded. Your immune system is throwing everything it has at the invading army of bacteria, and the result is a massive accumulation of pus, a thick, toxic slurry of dead white blood cells, dead bacteria, and liquefied bone tissue. This collection of pus creates immense pressure. It's trapped within the rigid confines of your jawbone, and it needs to escape. This pressure is the source of the excruciating, deep, boring pain you are feeling. It's a pain that defies description. It's not just a sensation, it's an event. It eclipses all other thoughts, all other feelings. The world shrinks until it is composed of nothing but this single, overwhelming reality. You can no longer chew on that side of your mouth. Even the gentle pressure of your teeth touching sends a jolt of agony through your skull. Eating becomes an ordeal. You try to mash your gritty bread with your front teeth, or soak it in beer until it's a soft mush that you can swallow without chewing. But even that is difficult. The simple act of opening your mouth is painful, as the swollen tissues protest. The swelling isn't just on the outside. It's on the inside too. The floor of your mouth and the side of your tongue are pushed upwards by the mass in your jaw. It feels like you have a hot stone lodged under your tongue. Swallowing is difficult. Sleep offers no escape. You lie on your reed mat, but every position is wrong. If you lie on the swollen side, the pressure is unbearable. If you lie on the underside, the throbbing seems to become a physical weight, pulling your head down. You might drift into a fitful, feverish sleep for a few minutes, only to be jolted awake by a fresh wave of pain. The nights are endless, a dark sea of suffering. You are witnessing, in real time, the destructive power of a dental infection. What started as a microscopic hole in your tooth has now become a biological siege engine, destroying bone and tissue. The hard, strong mandible that has served you your whole life is being hollowed out from within. Sometimes, the pressure becomes so great that it can actually cause a spontaneous fracture. The jawbone, weakened by the infection, simply cracks under the strain. This is a catastrophic event, and one that paleopathologists occasionally see in the skeletons of your people. As you sit in the shade of your home, holding your hot, swollen face, you are utterly helpless. You have exhausted all the cures your civilization has to offer. The magic, the medicine, the folk remedies, they have all been proven powerless against this foe. You are alone with the pain. The great irony is that the solution is, in theory, so simple: drain the abscess and remove the source of the infection, the dead tooth. A future dentist could resolve this in under an hour. But those skills, and the understanding behind them, are thousands of years away. For you, there is no solution. There is only the swelling, the pain, and the terrifying realization that the problem is no longer just in your tooth. It's taking over your head. The pain and swelling have become the architects of your new life. A life that is small, confined, and centered around misery. You can no longer go to the fields. The idea of stooping under the sun, of performing hard physical labor, is laughable. You can barely walk from your sleeping mat to the doorway. Your strength is gone, sapped by the constant, exhausting work of enduring the pain. Your role in the family has been inverted. You are no longer a provider. You are a burden. Your spouse and children must now do your share of the work. They tend to you, bringing you water, trying to coax you to eat some mashed lentils or a few sips of beer. They look at you with a mixture of pity and fear. This thing that has taken over your face is frightening to them. Are they next? Is this their future too? The world outside your small hut continues. You can hear the sounds of the village, the laughter of children chasing a dog, the rhythmic thud of a potter shaping clay, the distant calls of boatmen on the river. These normal, everyday sounds now feel like they belong to a different world, a world you have been exiled from. Your world is silent, save for the roaring of the pain in your head. Communication becomes a chore. The swelling in your jaw makes it difficult to speak clearly. Your words come out as a muffled slur, and besides, what is there to say? You can't describe the pain in a way that anyone who isn't feeling it can't truly understand. You become quiet, withdrawn. You live inside your own head, and it is a very unpleasant place to be. The financial toll is real, even in a world without money. The work you are doing is work that isn't getting done. The harvest will be smaller. The rations you earn will be less. Your family's security is threatened by your illness. A prolonged sickness like this can be an economic catastrophe for a household that lives on the edge of subsistence. Days bleed into one another, distinguished only by the shifting quality of the lighting and waning of the pain, which never truly leaves but sometimes recedes to a roar, and at other times escalates to a full-blown siren. Your perception of time warps. An hour can feel like a day. A day can feel like a lifetime. You lose your appetite completely. The thought of food is repulsive. Even your beloved bread, the staple of your life, is now your enemy. You associate it with the source of your agony. The smell of it baking, once a comfort, might now make you feel a wave of nausea. This is a key point that historians who study daily life try to reconstruct. How did chronic, severe pain reshape the social fabric and individual experience? It was a slow, grinding, isolating erosion of a person's life. It turned active members of the community into suffering recluses. It drained households of their vitality. It was a hidden tax on the prosperity and happiness of the entire civilization. You spend your days sitting, staring, waiting. Waiting for what? You don't know. For the swelling to go down. For the pain to break. For some kind of miracle. You might pray, whispering the names of the healing god Sekhmet, the fierce slyness goddess who could bring plague but also cure it. Or Isis, the great mother goddess of magic. You might promise them anything, offer them anything, if they would just make it stop. But the gods are silent, and as you sit there in your small dark room, a captive of your own body, you are the living proof of the absolute limit of your world's power. You could build pyramids that touch the sky, but it could not fix a single, infected tooth. It could create a vision of an eternal, perfect afterlife, but it could do little to alleviate the hell of your present reality. Your life, once filled with the rhythms of the sun and the river, is now filled with nothing but pain. A new symptom has joined the chorus of your misery. It's a taste in your mouth, a constant, foul and inescapable taste. It's bitter, metallic, and vaguely salty. It is the taste of decay. This is the flavor of the infection finally, successfully, finding a way out. The immense pressure of the pus built up in your jawbone has achieved its goal. It has created a fistula, a drainage tract, tunneling from the abscess at the root of your tooth, up through the bone and out through your gums. You might have felt it happen. A sudden warm gush in your mouth, followed by a wave of the most disgusting taste you have ever experienced. The pressure in your jaw might have even eased for a moment. A brief, blessed respite as the abscess partially drained. You would have spit out a mouthful of thick, yellowish, blood-tinged fluid. This is the pus, the toxic soup that has been brewing in your bone. Now that fistula is a permanent feature. It's a small open channel, a direct line from the raging infection to your mouth, and it leaks constantly. A slow, steady seep of vile tasting fluid that coats your tongue and the back of your throat. You can't wash it away. You can rinse with water, but the taste returns within minutes. It contaminates everything you try to eat or drink. The sweet water from the Nile now tastes corrupted. The blandness of a lentil stew is overwhelmed by the foulness from your own body. It's like being haunted by a ghost that you can taste. The smell is there too. The infection has a distinct odor, the sickly sweet smell of rot. It clings to your breath. When you speak, people might subtly lean away from you. This adds another layer to your isolation. You are not just in pain, you are, to others, unclean. The shame is a heavy blanket on top of the pain. This constant presence of pus in your mouth is also accelerating the destruction. The aggressive bacteria are no longer confined to your jawbone. They are now being spread all over your mouth with every swallow. They attack the neighboring teeth, the gums, the soft tissues of your cheeks and throat. A single abscess can become the seed for widespread periodontal disease, causing your gums to become inflamed, to bleed, and to recede, exposing the roots of even your healthy teeth to attack. You are, in a very real sense, tasting your own defeat. The taste is a constant, visceral reminder that your body is failing, that a part of you is rotting while you are still alive. It's a level of physical intimacy with disease that is profoundly disturbing. This specific symptom, the draining fistula, is something paleopathologists look for as definitive proof of a chronic, active abscess. When they find the telltale hole in the jawbone of a skull, they know that the owner of that skull lived with this exact experience. They know that this person endured not just the pain, but the constant, disgusting taste and smell of their own infection, to understand that it wasn't just a physical pain, but a deep psychological torment as well. There is a grim, ongoing debate about the psychological impact of such chronic conditions in the ancient world. Did people become accustomed to it? Did the constant foulness become a new, wretched baseline for what normal tasted like? Or was it a daily source of revulsion and despair? It's impossible to know for sure. But as you sit there, the taste of defeat filling your senses, it's hard to imagine ever getting used to it. The taste is a signal, a warning. It's your body telling you that the infection has established a beachhead. It has a supply line, and it is not content to stay in your jaw. It is using your own mouth as a staging ground for its next, and potentially final, invasion. The taste is the herald of a much greater danger. The foul taste in your mouth and the swelling in your jaw are just the local theater of war. The real danger has always been the risk of the infection spreading. A tooth abscess is not like a splinter in your finger. It's an infection located inside your head, a biological stone's throw away from your brain, your airway, and the major highways of your circulatory system. For weeks, your body has been trying to contain the battle to your jawbone. The abscess cavity itself is a form of quarantine, the body trying to wall off the infection. The fistula, that drainage tract into your mouth, is another desperate measure to vent the pressure and keep the infection localized. But these defenses are failing. The bacterial army is too large, too aggressive. The infection can spread in several ways. The first is by direct invasion. The bacteria can continue to chew through the bone and soft tissue, moving from the jaw into the surrounding spaces of the face and neck. One of the most dangerous parts is downwards, into the deep spaces of the neck. If the pus collects there, it can put pressure on your trachea, your windpipe. Slowly, insidiously, your airway begins to narrow. Breathing becomes difficult, then labored. You might develop a wheezing sound with every breath. This condition, which future doctors will call Ludwig's angina, is a dire medical emergency. It's a slow, terrifying form of suffocation. Another terrifying path is upwards. The infection can travel from the upper jaw into the sinus cavities, the air-filled spaces behind your cheeks and forehead. This causes excruciating pressure, headaches, and a constant flow of infected mucus from the sinuses. It's a terrifyingly short journey through thin plates of bone to the most precious and vulnerable organ in your body, your brain. An infection that reaches the brain, causing a brain abscess or meningitis, is almost invariably fatal. The headache becomes blinding, you become confused, you might have seizures, and then you fall into a coma. But the most common and insidious method of escape is through the bloodstream. Remember the pulp of your tooth. It was filled with tiny blood vessels. The infection has been teeming in and around this vascular network for a long time. It's inevitable that bacteria will break into these small vessels. Once a single bacterium gets into the bloodstream, it's like a person catching a ride on the Nile. It can go anywhere. This is a condition called bacteremia, bacteria in the blood. Normally, your immune system can filter out a small number of stray bacteria. But your immune system is already exhausted from fighting the massive, entrenched war in your jaw. It's overwhelmed. The bacteria begin to circulate freely throughout your entire body. They can travel to your heart and colonize the heart valves, causing a devastating infection called endocarditis. They can travel to your lungs, seeding a new infection there and causing pneumonia. They can travel to your joints, causing septic arthritis, or to your bones, causing osteomyelitis. The single infection in your tooth has metastasized. It has become a systemic, body-wide disease. You wouldn't know the names for any of this. You would only know the symptoms. You feel a profound weakness or weariness that goes bone deep. You have no energy for anything. Your joints begin to ache. You might develop a cough. You are just sick everywhere. This is a crucial point that is still debated among paleopathologists. When they find a skeleton with a severe dental abscess, they can be certain that the person suffered. But can they prove it was the cause of death? It's difficult. The infection in the soft tissues, the brain, the heart, the lungs disappears as the body decays, leaving only the evidence in the bone. but by looking at the sheer severity of the dental infections they find. Many scientists conclude that these abscesses were a major, and vastly underappreciated, cause of death in your time. The jawbone of a mummy can, in essence, become the smoking gun, the evidence of the crime that likely led to the individual's demise. You are no longer just a person with a bad tooth. You are a person with a failing body. The fortress has been breached, and the enemy is now sacking the city. The problem that began with a single grain of sand in a loaf of bread has now put your entire life in jeopardy. The systemic invasion has begun, and your body signals its distress in the most universal way it knows how, with a fever. It starts as a chill. You're sitting in the warm Egyptian sun, yet you feel a deep, penetrating cold in your bones. You can't stop shivering. Your teeth, the healthy ones, chatter against each other. You pull a linen shawl tightly around your shoulders, but it does no good. The cold is coming from inside you. This is the first stage of a high fever, the body manipulating its own thermostat in response to the widespread infection, the sepsis that is now coursing through your veins. After the chills comes the heat. A wave of intense heat washes over you. Your skin becomes hot and dry to the touch. The world takes on a shimmering, watery quality. Your thoughts become sluggish and confused, as if you're trying to think through a thick fog. The fever is a sign that your body's fight against the infection has escalated into a desperate, all-out war, and it's a war that is consuming all of your energy and resources. You are laid on your mat in the coolest, darkest corner of the house. A damp cloth is placed on your forehead. It feels wonderfully cool for a moment, then rapidly warms to the temperature of your skin. You are thirsty, profoundly thirsty, but it's an effort to even lift your head to drink. In your feverish state, the lines between the real world and the world of spirits begin to blur. You might have vivid, terrifying dreams. You might see the faces of gods or demons and the shadows dancing on the wall. You might hear voices whispering just at the edge of your hearing. To your family, you are delirious, you are speaking nonsense. But to you, these experiences are terrifyingly real. Your body is being pushed to its absolute limit. A sustained high fever dehydrates you, puts immense strain on your heart, and can cause damage to your organs, including your brain. You are becoming weaker by the hour. The local healer might be summoned again. Seeing your fever and delirium, they would be certain that a powerful demon has taken hold of you. The treatments would become more frantic, more desperate. They might perform a ritual of purification, wafting incense smoke over you. They might drop protective symbols on your body with ochre. They might try to tempt the demon out of you by leaving offerings of food and beer just outside the door. But the demon is microscopic. It's immune to magic and deaf to incantations. It is simply multiplying in your bloodstream, releasing toxins that are poisoning you from the inside out. The study of ancient disease often has to infer these final stages. The skeleton can show the abscess, but it can't show the fever, the delirium, the organ failure. However, by understanding the predictable course of an untreated infection, scientists can reconstruct your final days with a grim degree of certainty. They know that what started in your mouth has now led to septic shock. Your blood pressure is dropping, your heart is struggling, and your organs are beginning to shut down. This is the tragic end of the road that began with that first bite of gritty bread. Each step followed the last with a terrible, logical inevitability. The abrasion led to enamel loss. The enamel loss led to pulp exposure. The pulp exposure led to infection. The infection led to an abscess. And the abscess led to systemic sepsis. It's a perfect, deadly chain reaction. As you lie there, lost in the feverish reeds of your own consciousness, you are a case study in the fragility of life without modern medicine. You are a testament to the fact that the most dangerous monsters are not the giant crocodiles in the river or the snakes in the desert. They are the ones that can be carried on a grain of sand and delivered into your body by the very food you eat to survive. The fever is the fire of your own body consuming itself in a final, futile attempt to burn out the invaders, and it's a fire that is about to burn out. The fever breaks, but it's not a sign of healing. It's a sign of surrender. Your body, exhausted from the long, futile fight, no longer has the energy to sustain the heat. A strange, unnatural coolness begins to settle over you. Your breathing becomes shallow, your pulse weak and thread wide. The fire is going out. Your family gathers around you. They know these signs. They have seen them before. They moisten your lips with a wet cloth. They hold your hand. There is nothing else to be done but to wait and to begin the rituals of mourning. In these final, lucid moments, your life might flash before you. Not in a dramatic rush, but in a series of quiet, disconnected images. You see the shimmering expanse of the Nile during the inundation, the promise of a new season. You see the golden fields of barley at harvest time rippling in the sun. You see the faces of your children, laughing. You see the comforting glow of the baking oven, and the satisfying weight of a fresh loaf of bread in your hands. Bread. It all comes back to bread. The very substance that built your body is what ultimately destroyed it. The daily ration that gave you the strength to plow the fields, to raise a family, to build monuments for the gods, was also a slow-acting poison. Every meal was a step on this journey. Every gritty bite was a nail in your own coffin. This is the final, devastating price of bread. It's a price that was paid by countless thousands of your people, for generation after generation. It was a hidden cost, an invisible tax on life, written into the very foundation of your food supply. When future historians and archaeologists study your remains, they will see you as a statistic in a study of paleopathology. They will note the extreme dental attrition, the pyropekic abscesses, the evidence of systemic infection. They will write papers and give lectures about the dental health of ancient Egyptians. But what the data can never fully capture is this moment. The quiet, personal tragedy of a life cut short not by war or famine or plague, but by your daily meal. Was there any way to avoid this fate? Probably not. The technology of the saddle quern was the best you had. The desert environment was a given. A life without bread was unthinkable. You were trapped in a system that nourished you and killed you in the same gesture. As your consciousness begins to fade, to drift away from the small, dark room, you are becoming part of a great, silent majority. The uncounted victims of a food-borne catastrophe that unfolded over 3,000 years. Your individual story is ending, but it's a story that was repeated in its broad strokes in the lives of so many of your countrymen. The irony is almost too perfect, too cruel. The ancient Egyptians had a profound belief in the afterlife. They spent immense resources preparing for it, ensuring they would have food and drink for eternity. They would mummify the bodies of the wealthy and fill their tombs with magical spells to protect them. They would paint images of feasts on the tomb walls and leave behind actual loaves of bread, preserved for millennia, so the spirit would never go hungry. They did all this to ensure eternal life, never realizing that the very same bread, eaten in their mortal life, was what so often shortened their journey to that eternity. The staff of life was, in the end, the staff of death. Your personal story is over. But your teeth, your bones, they will lie in the dries, and for thousands of years, waiting patiently to tell their silent, grinding story to a future that could never imagine a world where bread was a killer. But what about the ones at the top? The ones who didn't live in a simple mud brick house? What about the nobles, the high priests, the pharaoh himself? Surely they were spared this gritty, painful fate. Surely the king of Upper and Lower Egypt, the living embodiment of the god Horus, ate a better class of bread. Let's travel from your humble village to a royal palace in Thebes or Memphis. The scale of the operation is immense. Instead of a single woman grinding flour for her family, there is a vast royal bakery, a veritable food factory. Dozens of workers, both male and female, labor here. The granaries are colossal, holding the finest grain, selected from the most fertile lands, a tribute from the entire nation. The process is more refined. The grain is likely sifted multiple times to fine linen cloths, a luxury you could never afford. The bakers are specialists, artisans who create a wide variety of breads and cakes. There are soft, leavened loaves for the king's table, sweetened with honey and studded with expensive dates. There are intricately shaped festival breads, and delicate pastries made with the whitest, purest-looking flour imaginable. The grinding technology, however, is fundamentally the same. The saddle quern is still the primary tool. Even in the grandest royal kitchens, the flour is still made by grinding stone against stone. The stones might be of a higher quality, less prone to shedding, but they are still stone. The desertson is still in the air. It still settles on the grain, on the grinding slabs, on the kneading board. So did the pharaoh eat better bread? Yes. It was likely far less gritty than your common loaf. The extra sifting, the greater care, the cleaner environment, all of it would have reduced the abrasive load significantly. But it would not have eliminated it entirely. Some grit always gets through. The difference was not one of kind, but of degree. The pharaoh was eating a much reduced dose of the same slow poison. We know this because we have examined their teeth. The mummies of kings and queens, preserved with the highest art of the emblem, have been subjected to the same X-rays and CT scans as the mummies of commoners. And their teeth tell a fascinating story. Yes, in general. Their teeth are in better condition. The wear, the attrition, is noticeably less severe than what we see in the general population. A 40-year-old pharaoh might have the dental wear of a 20-year-old farmer. Their privileged diet, which likely included more meat and less bread overall, combined with the finer quality of their flour, gave them a huge advantage. But the advantage was not total immunity. The telltale signs are still there. The flattened cusps on the molars, the exposed dentin, and in many cases, the same tragic consequences abscesses. The evidence is undeniable. We have found abscesses in the jaws of powerful pharaohs. We have seen evidence of advanced disease in the mouths of queens. Wealth and divine status could delay the problem, but it could not prevent it. The fundamental flaw in the food system was so pervasive that it reached all the way to the top of the social pyramid. This is a point of considerable fascination for historians. The dental health of the elite provides a unique window into the limits of their power. A pharaoh could command armies, build colossal temples, and be worshipped as a god, but he could not command the grit to leave his flour. He had access to the best physicians in the land, men who possessed the accumulated medical knowledge of their civilization. But those physicians were just as helpless against a raging abscess as the village healer was. So, as you lay dying from an infection that started with your daily bread, you might have imagined the pharaoh in his palace, feasting on soft, sweet cakes, free from the suffering that defined your final days. The reality is more complex. The pharaoh was on the same path as you. His journey was just a lot slower. He was walking, while you were running, towards the same dental cliff. The bread of royalty was still, in the end, the bread of affliction. And even a god-king was not immune to a toothache. Let's look at one specific case. A man named Amenhotep II. He was one of the most powerful and magnificent pharaohs of the New Kingdom, ruling during the absolute zenith of Egypt's wealth and international prestige. His reign was long and largely peaceful. He was a builder of colossal statues and glorious temples, including much of the Luxor temples. He was a diplomat whose name was known and respected from Nubia to the Aegean Sea. He was, for all intents and purposes, the king of the world. Now let's look inside his mouth. When his royal mummy was examined using modern forensic techniques, the story of his final years came into focus, and it was not a story of divine tranquility. It was a story of chronic, debilitating pain. Amenhotep I lived to be somewhere in his late 40s or early 50s, a respectable age for the time. But his teeth were a wreck. They showed the characteristic pattern of wear, flattened and worn down, though perhaps not as severely as a commoner of the same age. But the real problem was the infection. His mummy reveals multiple, severe, and long-standing dental abscesses. We can see the evidence of abscesses that have been draining for years, creating fistulas just like the one you suffered from. He would have lived with that same foul taste in his mouth, the same bad breath. He would have endured the same cycles of swelling and remission. His jawbone shows the scarring and remodeling consistent with chronic, widespread infection. Imagine this man, this living god, presiding over a grand festival at the Temple of Karnak. He is draped in the finest linen, adorned with gold and lapis lazuli. The air is thick with incense. Chants echo off the colossal pillars. He is the center of this universe of power and ritual. And all the while, a hot, throbbing pain is radiating from his jaw. He is trying to maintain a divine, impassive expression while a disgusting, Foul fluid is seeping into his mouth. Think of him in the throne room receiving ambassadors from foreign lands. He has to speak, to issue decrees, to negotiate treaties, and he is doing it all while his body is fighting a raging systemic infection. The fatigue, the low-grade fever, the constant drain on his energy, all of it would have been hidden behind the mask of pharaonic authority. His physicians, the best in the land, would have been in a state of panic. The health of the king was tied to the health of the nation itself. They would have tried everything in their medical papier. The incantations, the magical poultices, the expensive and exotic ingredients. Perhaps they even dared to lance a royal abscess, a terrifying prospect for any physician. But just like with you, their efforts were futile. The infections persisted. There's a fascinating academic debate about the ultimate cause of Amenhotep III's death. His mummy shows no signs of violence or obvious trauma. Many Egyptologists now believe that he died from complications stemming directly from his dental disease. The chronic infections, running rampant for years, would have weakened his immune system and likely seeded secondary infections elsewhere in his body, perhaps in his heart or kidneys. The king of the world, the dazzling sun disk, was very likely brought down by a toothache. His case is a powerful reminder of the universal nature of this problem. It proves that wealth and power were not a shield. In a world before antibiotics, before modern dentistry, everyone was vulnerable. The pain that you, a simple farmer, experienced in your humble hut was the same pain experienced by the pharaoh in his opulent palace. Your suffering was a secret bond you shared with your king. His royal touch bridges the immense social gap between you. It demonstrates that beneath the gold and the linen, the king was made of the same fragile flesh and bone. And his body broke down in the same way yours did, rotted from the inside out by the same invisible enemy, delivered by the same staple food. The bread, in its grim democracy, ground down the pauper and the pharaoh alike. And so we arrive at the end of the loaf. Your story and the story of your king have reached their quiet, painful conclusions. From the life-giving flood of the Nile to the dusty harvest, from the rhythmic scrape of the grinding stone to the warm, comforting smell of the oven, we have followed the journey of your bread. And we have seen its profound and tragic irony. The bread was the currency of an empire. It was the fuel that built the pyramids. It was the offering that appeased the gods. It was the symbol of life, prosperity, and divine order. A common greeting, a form of payment. A wish for the afterlife. Bread was woven into the very fabric of your reality, as essential and unquestioned as the sun in the sky. And yet, within every single loaf lay the seeds of destruction. Tiny, sharp, and relentless. The grit from the desert and the dust from the stone were the hidden ingredients, the fatal flaw in the system. Every meal, every day, for an entire lifetime, you participated in a slow, grinding act of self-destruction. This wasn't a flaw your civilization could see or comprehend. You had no concept of microscopic bacteria, no knowledge of enamel or dentin. You interpreted the resulting pain through the lens of your world as the work of demons, gods, or mysterious tooth worms. Your cures were a reflection of that understanding, a mix of magic, prayer, and desperate, oft unharmful folk remedies. You did the best you could with the knowledge you had. The result was a silent epidemic of pain. A national agony that unfolded behind closed doors, in the swollen jaws and feverish minds of millions. It's a story that was largely invisible in the grand histories of your time, which focused on the deeds of kings and the outcomes of battles. But the whispers from the tombs, the forensic evidence from thousands of skulls, have finally allowed that silent story to be told. They reveal a level of chronic suffering that is difficult for a modern mind to truly grasp. There's a continuing scholarly discussion about the true legacy of this issue. Did the constant pain and sickness make your people more resilient, or did it create a society with a kind of baseline of misery, a fatalistic acceptance of suffering? Did it subtly shape your religion, your art, your philosophy? These are questions we may never be able to answer fully, but we can say this: the story of Egyptian bread is a profound and humbling lesson. It's a reminder that the most fundamental aspects of a civilization, its food, its technology, its environment, can have consequences that are both unintended and devastating. It shows how a seemingly minor technological limitation can cast a long, dark shadow over the health and happiness of an entire people for millennia. As we leave you now, perhaps resting in your tomb, prepared for your journey to the field of reeds, we have one final image. It is the image of an offering table, piled high with provisions for your eternal life. And there, at the center of it all, are loaves of bread. The perfect, idealized bread that you hope to enjoy in the afterlife, finally free from the grit and the pain that defined the bread of your earthly existence. A final, poignant hope that in the next world, the staff of life would no longer be a weapon of slow destruction. And so, the story gently comes to rest. The echoes of the grinding stone have faded. The heat of the fever has cooled. You can feel that sense of distance now. A quiet separation from the world we just visited. That world of sun and sun can now dissolve, melting away like a dream upon waking, leaving behind only a deepened, profound stillness. There is nothing left to analyze, nothing more to understand. The journey is complete, and you can allow your mind to become like the surface of the Nile at dusk. Smooth, glassy, and perfectly calm. Any remaining thoughts can be like small boats, drifting slowly, silently, out of sight. Just let them go. You can feel a pleasant heaviness in your limbs now, a warmth spreading from your core outwards, to the tips of your fingers, the tips of your toes. It is the feeling of letting go completely. Your breath is slow and even, a gentle tide rising and falling, carrying you further and further away from the shore of Bekes, out into the deep, peaceful ocean of sleep. You are safe here, in this quiet. Know where you need to be, other than right here, drifting, floating, sinking softly into a well-deserved and profound slumber. The final word has been whispered. If your mind is still gently stirring, you're welcome to drift into another of my stories. If not, I wish you a deep and peaceful slumber. Good night.